Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Taking Control of Your Diabetes TCOYD show and tell. I am Jeremy Pettus, the brains of the operation, and this is Dr. Stephen Edelman.
Thank you.
You want to say hi?
Hello, everybody. I taught him everything he knows.
So thanks for joining us for this. Again, it's a show and tell, which is really just that we show you stuff and talk about it. And the theme of this overall episode, if you will, is all about technology. And why this topic? This is really the thing, to be honest, that's kind of moving and shaking in the world of diabetes. I mean, when you think about what I was using, what you were using, even 2 years ago, 5 years ago, it's changed so dramatically. There's a lot to keep up with, which is good news for us people living with diabetes.
Yeah, it's almost a full-time job to stay up with all the advances. I just heard about some amazing advancements today coming down the pike in CGM. We're going to talk about what's here and now primarily today. But yeah, it's, when you think about it, when you think about all of medicine, you become a doctor. Then you say, well, I want to be an internist, general doctor. Then you say, well, I'm going to be an endocrinologist. And then you can say, I'm going to be a diabetologist. And we have a hard time keeping up with just what's going on in the diabetes field, both type 1 and type 2.
So I love to show this chart when we talk about this topic. I call it my sophisticated diabetes chart, which is like changes I've made in my diabetes regimen since 1994 when I was diagnosed to 2021 now. And for the first 10, 15 years, there was really nothing. When I was diagnosed, I started on this one-touch meter. It's called a one-touch basic, and I love it because they knew it was basic even then. It took a minute to get a reading. And I used that for years, and then meters got smaller and a little bit more accurate, and that took like a decade. And it wasn't until about 2010 that I went on my first CGM. And then after that, my sophisticated chart just blows up in terms of every year. It was the new CGM, the new advancement in the pump. It's kind of like iPhones now, that there's always the new iteration, which is awesome that things have exploded, but it means that people really need to kind of seek out this information about what's going on.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me how many patients I might see or people I meet with diabetes that are smart, they're successful, they have no clue about the latest advances. That's you, Cameron. And by the way, when I first diagnosed, I was peeing on a glucose stick, and I had my little erector set for the pills. And then,
Erector set.
Like, when you check your urine for ketones and stuff, it sounded good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get into bamboo needles like Jeremy says that we used to have, but you know what? All you folks that got diabetes recently, you lucky SOBs.
Yeah, we just saw somebody in the office last week that was just diagnosed, young adult in his early 20s, went into the hospital when he was first diagnosed. They got him on a CGM right in the hospital. Has basically never pricked his finger. I was thinking, I've checked my blood sugar 40, 50,000 times in my life. And here are these newly diagnosed folks, God bless them. It's a thing of the past, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last story I'll tell is that, I remember meeting Steve. It was actually 2010. And I went to meet him. He was working in the diabetes clinic, and I never met him.
He comes in real shy.
It was like pretty cool, like entry, I think. I was there to talk to him about like a lecture I was going to give, and people said Steve's like the best resource on this, which he was. And I get there, and he finds out that I have type 1 diabetes. I wasn't on a CGM, had no clue what it was. I wasn't on a pump, just like you said. And we didn't talk about this lecture I wanted to give at all. You just kind of berated me a little bit lovingly about what was going on with CGM pumps, anything. So anyways, let's about specifics. We'll talk about CGMs, then pens, then pumps. So let's start with CGMs. Which one do you want to talk about first, et cetera?
Well, I should say up front that we have Dexcom, Abbott, and Tandem are sponsoring this show and tell, although we can talk about anything we want. I want to get this out of the way. This is the doctor bag I got when I was a medical student in 1978 to 82. And I just gave Eric, our videographer, a quiz. I asked him what this was, and he got it. It's a pacemaker. And this was in the cadaver that I dissected in my first year of medical school. All right, let's talk about
CGM.
Yeah. CGM.
The other thing I want to mention is for your questions, put them in the Q&A, not the chat. The chat is for chatting. comments and stuff like that, Q&A will come to us and we can answer them actually live. So do that. So,
well, let me say one more historical thing.
Okay.
You know, give me a break. I mean, this right here is called a gluco watch, and on the back is these two ionospheric sensors that stick on your skin and measures glucose across the membrane of your skin. It caused two little hickeys wherever you put it, but this is really the first approved CGM device many, many years ago, and it wasn't accurate. It didn't work that well, but they get kudos for trying and opening the door for other sensors. And you know, let's talk about Dexcom. Might as well. That was the first major advance in CGM.
Yeah. So, you know, real quick, like we always have to mention the benefits of CGM, which almost sounds like everybody should know it now. But I have to remember that when CGM first came out, not that long ago, and actually up till fairly recently, people kind of viewed it as fringe. You know, it was this cool, like whiz-bang tool that you didn't really need. And if you had it, it might even be too much information. And if we gave people with diabetes all this information, they were going to overreact and crash their cars and all this just nonsense. Fast forward to today, it is the standard of care for people with diabetes on insulin, type 1 or type 2, period. And the reason it's the standard of care because the evidence now is overwhelming that when people use a continuous glucose monitor, they have better glucose control, they lower their A1C, more time in range, they have less hypoglycemia, and they have, in general, a better quality of life. And I mean, what else could you ask for from a diabetes therapy? Of better control, better quality of life, less hypos. It really is a breakthrough for people with diabetes.
Yeah, you mentioned time and range. It's probably important to mention that. But first, I wanted to say that it is the standard of care, but the vast majority of type 1s are not using a CGM. Can't figure that out.
Right.
You know, you may not be knowledgeable, your caregiver may not be knowledgeable, you may not have good health care. There's a lot of reasons for that. We empathize with you folks that do not have one. But the time and range is a really important concept. It's not really a new concept, but time and range is defined as the percent of time that your blood sugars are between 70 and 180. And that range was picked very strategically to include most blood sugars before and after eating. And it's all about time and range. I'm thinking about changing my middle name to Steve Time and Range Edelman. And, you know, we have this fun competition back and forth. The goal is over 70% of the time.
Yeah. And that reminds me to tell you that actually right now we are in the middle of a pizza challenge where Steve and I just a couple hours ago ate 3 pieces of pizza, and we're trying to stay in range between 70 and 180. And so far we're doing good. I'm at 147. What do you?
155 straight across.
So we're doing it.
Yeah, we're going to have a dose of Dr. E and Dr. P, and we're going to have this is going to be a special segment on our big one conference, the ultimate conference and retreat for people with type 1, virtual this year.
Yeah.
October.
All right. So let's talk about Dexcom. So this is the new Dexcom, or the most recent Dexcom G6. There's been multiple iterations of the Dexcom. When I started, it was a 7 Plus, and it was G4 for like the 4th generation, then G5, and now we're on the 6th generation G6. And, you know, real quick, it's made up of basically 2 different components. This is an auto inserter that puts on the sensor on your skin, and you can wear it anywhere. Are you showing us?
Show and tell.
Okay.
Okay.
There it is. So Steve has his sensor here, and then the gray transmitter that clicks into it. You can wear this for 10 days. You don't have to calibrate it, no finger sticks. Every 5 minutes, it sends the glucose to either your smartphone or I can get it on my watch. That's why I looked at it. And having all that information just literally at your fingertips is amazing.
And I was just going to say, it's up to you. I mean, I have my own desires. I get it on my phone, and I also use this little monitor that comes with it because I don't always like to pull out my phone. I put it on my bike when I'm riding, and this is probably too much information, but setting your alerts and alarms is pretty important. We should talk about that. And I set this one at 180, but my phone at a much nicer tone at 150. That way I am notified well before I get to the 180 mark. So I did that today when I was eating the pizza, and sure enough, a little ding went off at 150. I had a diagonal arrow up, and I gave myself a little correction bolus.
Yeah, and that's, you know, one of the benefits that you were notified in real time when you go low or high, and you can set that. So my high alarm is set at 160. Yours is at 150. So you know when you're going up, and basically you should set your alarms at a place that is a call to action. Anytime it goes off, it means that you need to do something. So for Steve, when it goes above 150, he takes insulin or whatever. For me, it's 160. Don't, all the time I meet people that say, I have my alarm set at 140. I say, why? And then it's just going off and buzzing and bothering them, and it becomes something that they just ignore. So it should be something that when it goes off, it actually means do something, not just like, hey, like you're bad.
Worse than that, I have patients who have their highs set at 240 or that it's off. That's the worst situation.
Yeah.
And those are the people that have the world's worst control with the world's best technology. And you have to remember, the alerts and alarms are your friends. And I always tell people that when you use it on your iPhone, I'm not sure about Androids, but they have like 20 different sounds. You can pick one that's not the one that comes with factory settings, which I hate. So you can change it. There's one of a baby crying, and that I do that. It reminds me of Jeremy. I'm telling you, it sounds so real. I
just witnessed like the birth of a new joke. I feel like I'm going to hear that like more and more from now on. But yeah, you can also set your alarms to be different at night.
Yes.
People usually, they don't know about that feature, and it's helpful because you can make them more stringent. So I think my high alarm might be like 200 at night or something to give me, to not wake me up as much and only notify me when it's getting like a little bit more, to a high point.
And I think that's probably the biggest complaint I hear from people is that they hate the alerts. And it keeps them up at night, keeps their spouse up at night. Remember the joke that we always talk about that, the person with diabetes doesn't seem to hear a thing at night, but their significant other wakes up. And you know what? I think that's true because I hear it go off and I know my girlfriend will eventually shove me. So why should I have to worry about it? But now that I'm on the a hybrid closed loop system, which we'll get to, hardly ever get low at night.
Yeah. So the other thing, sorry, to keep in mind is that we're talking about these real-time alerts and alarms, 70 to 180, when your blood sugars go off. You can also look at your reports, and not enough people living with diabetes actually do this, where they look at their retrospective reports, and that's the Clarity app that you can get from Dexcom. What are you clicking on right now?
I want to just do the baby crying. Okay, here it is. Well, they won't be able to hear it.
Oh.
Yeah, but I can disconnect.
Do you want to just like do it? Just
well, what I was looking up is the share feature.
Okay.
The share feature is awesome. The share feature with the Dexcom, you can share it up to 5 people, loved ones, and you could set it of what level do you want them to be alerted. So my classic recommendation is that you only put it on the below 55. And I tell my friends, if I'm below 55 with a trend arrow straight across, don't worry. But if I'm going down, text me.
Yeah.
And if I don't respond, then call me.
And you can have up to 5 people follow you. I didn't know this. I found out this recently that I was following you and you kicked me off because you thought I didn't care enough.
Yeah.
I didn't text him fast enough when his alert went off, so I got booted. But this is great for following loved ones, spouses, like whatever, when they're traveling, so you can be notified. If you have a kid in school, seeing them in real time, huge. So let me go back to the Clarity app, or just the idea of looking at reports. And this is something that is so critical because you can become basically your own endocrinologist because you have all your blood sugar information all the time. You don't have to wait to see your doctor to see what your A1C is. You can see what you're doing. So whether it's on Dexcom or the Libre, they have reports and you should know your goals. So let's talk about those real quick. So for most people, we want your average blood sugar to be 155 or less. And why 155? Because if your blood sugar is 155, that's an A1C of around 7. And anything less than that means that on average, you're doing well. So that's one thing. So you can keep an eye on that. What is my average blood sugar? What was that over the last week? What was over the last 14 days? What have my trends been? So that's one thing. And then when it comes to your time in range, that time between 70 and 180, we want that at least 70%. And the more time in range you have, basically, the better you're doing. If it's 80, you're kicking butt. If it's 90, that's almost unheard of. But anything above 70, pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll finish these off.
Yeah.
And the last things we want to know is how much time you're spending low. We basically want the amount of time that you're low to be as low as possible. Technically, less than 4% is where we want you to be on the less than 70 mark. And then the extreme lows, less than 55, we want less than 1%. So that's a lot of numbers, but it's just saying, I want my average blood sugar 150 or so. I want my time in range above 70. And you can look at these reports. It's actually not that complicated. It's actually kind of fun. Steve just pulled it up in 2 seconds. It pulls it up and he can see how he's doing. He pulled up his last 2 days just to kind of show off. Your time in range is 85%.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
doing well.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And very little lows.
Who's your endo?
You.
No, thanks. So that's important. And if you kind of keep track of this, it makes such a better conversation with your provider when you go see them, rather than, I don't know what my blood sugars are doing. Like you look at it, you fix it. It's a much more interactive conversation. Hey, I've been following my time in range. I noticed that it's slipped or it's doing really well. What do you think? Take an active role in your diabetes. And that's exactly the whole point of not only CGM, but TCOYD. Take control of your diabetes. This is your disease. You're living with it. Know how to monitor it. Know what your goals are.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. The Clarity report and the Libre also has ambulatory glucose profile, the same sort of data. So I just clicked on 90 days. Now, I want to make an important point. It gives you a number called the GMI, Glucose Management Indicator. It's basically an estimation, a very accurate one, of your A1C, because you want it over 90 days. And I can tell you, and Jeremy's heard me say this a bunch of times, that this estimated A1C of 6.6 is more accurate than any lab I can go get my blood drawn at, because there's a lot of interfering factors. If you have kidney disease, if you're African American, if you're pregnant, there's blood dyscrasias. Impressive word. It just makes you guys know I'm a doctor. So it gives you so much information. The other thing I want to say is you don't have to learn a different language than your caregiver. Your doctor, I should say, your healthcare professional. I mean, this is the same language, time and range. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. And trust me, it's so easy to get used to looking at these numbers. You can really hone down. You could look at individual days and so you can really have a decent conversation and probably educate your healthcare professional.
Yeah. All right. So we're spending a lot of time on CGM. Let's talk about the Libre. You want to introduce it real quick?
Sure. The Libre came on the market a couple of years ago with kind of a different form factor. It had an auto inserter of the sensor. There's no transmitter. It's built into the sensor. And once you get past the warm-up period, which is now only an hour, you turn on this little monitor and you scan the sensor, which most people put on their arm, but you can put it pretty much any place.
So that's a key difference. So instead of always pushing in the information to your CGM, you only see the number when you swipe it.
Yeah. Now, when you swipe it, you get a number, you get a trend arrow, and it sucks in the last 8 hours. And if you swipe it at least once every 8 hours, which you should be doing, you don't lose any data, and it shows up on a really nice download, just like the ones we talked about for Clarity. And talk about the Libre 2.
Yeah, so initially when this came out, we thought of it more as a type 2 product because it wouldn't give you alerts and alarms, meaning if your blood sugar was 50, you wouldn't know it unless you just happened to swipe it. And to us, that wasn't appropriate. If somebody's type 1, you want them to know, be alerted when their blood sugar is really low. With the Libre 2, you can set alerts and alarms. And it also can go to your smartphone. So you can get rid of this, receiver if you don't want it and just use the smartphone to swipe it. So it's an option now for type 1s. The other side of this conversation is, what sensor do you want to wear? But then what does it play with in terms of pumps? And that's what we should, kind of transition to next, because when you're making a choice about a sensor, you should also be thinking, do I want to wear a pump with it? Does it interact with the sensor, et cetera?
Like the new thing nowadays, it's really going to be the future of taking care of people with type 1 and insulin requiring type 2s is these hybrid closed loop systems where the pump communicates with the CGM device. It's huge.
Right.
And that's probably the only reason why my control is as good as it's ever been.
Right.
And I don't take any credit for that. I give technology
You should give
Kudos.
yourself some credit.
All right.
Like, 20%. All right, so let's talk about these systems real quick. So, or not quickly, but so I'm on a system called the Tandem Control IQ. So it's a pump made by Tandem. And what it does is it interacts with the Dexcom continuous glucose monitor. And for basically the first time, I would say, it really does modulate insulin delivery based on what your continuous glucose monitor is doing. Meaning, if my blood sugar starts trending high, it can actually increase the basal rate in my pump automatically and give an automatic correction bolus up to every hour if I'm high. On the flip side, if I go low, it can decrease my basal rate or suspend insulin delivery completely to help avoid that low, or if I do go low, help, so it's not as severe. Now, what I should make very clear is that this algorithm is not, strong enough, if you will, to handle meals. So you still have to bolus and do kind of all your daytime activities. But it's really helpful for these like slow trends up or down with blood sugar, which is particularly valuable overnight.
Yeah, I just want to add, it takes into account your rate of change of glucose. So almost all of the settings, whether it's exercise, sleep mode, increasing the insulin delivery, turning it off, is all based on the predicted blood sugar in 30 minutes.
Yeah. So basically overnight now, that used to be such a crapshoot. You'd wake up and be like, oh, like, I almost like dread looking at my CGM. Am I high? Am I low? Where am I at? Every day now I wake up between 100 and 120 or so, because the time I'm sleeping, 8 hours, let's say, by the time I wake up, it's figured out how much insulin to give me, so it can bring me down from a high or it can bring me up from kind of a low. So it's so nice to sleep without less alarms going off, less lows at night. Waking up with a good number is amazing. We just know that, like, everybody knows that when you wake up with a good number, your day tends to be better, both from a blood sugar standpoint and just your mood. Totally. When you wake up at 100, you're like, yay. When you wake up at 300, you just like, you're already mad, and who needs that?
Yeah. I used to share an office with Jeremy, and, before these systems came about, there's like maybe 10 or 12 half drinking Coke cans.
Here we go.
No, I'm just saying that you're trying to keep your blood sugar down at the expense of too many lows.
Right.
And that's what these systems do. They help you keep your blood sugars really tight in the really, I want to say low range. I want to say low normal range without a lot of hypoglycemia. Yeah. And they take time to get used to too.
And this is the first system that I really am advocating pretty strongly for people, especially type 1s, to get on a system like this. It used to be just a couple of years ago when this technology wasn't available. You want to do shots, you want to do a pump, fine with me. It's just a different way of delivering insulin. But now these systems are doing things you simply cannot do with shots. When I'm asleep, every 5 minutes, it's modulating insulin delivery. And I always say, I'm waking up with a blood sugar of 100, 120, whatever. Not because I'm smart or I'm an endocrinologist. I have this system that is doing what it needs. And the last thing I'll say about that is I love looking at how much insulin it gives me overnight, because it's so variable. Sometimes if maybe I ate pizza, it's giving me, a lot more at night. Sometimes maybe if I exercise, it's giving me a lot less. And it just goes to show you, if you're trying to do that with the same dose of Lantus or Tresiba or Toujeo or whatever every night, no wonder why you're failing, because our needs of insulin change so much on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, you have to admit, though, both you and I have patients that are on multiple daily injections, Toujeo and Tresiba basal and fast-acting, Afrezza, Lumja, faster acting aspart. They do pretty well.
Yeah. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. And like I said, I'm never going to tell somebody you have to be on this. I'm just saying the technology is now separating in a way, favoring pumps. So the Tandem pump is for sure a good option. Let's talk about what's going on in the rest of the pump market. Let's talk about the Omnipot, which is what you're on.
Yeah. Okay. I want to mention a few others too, but basically I am on the Omnipod. For some of you that do not know, it's for lack of a better definition, it's a patch pump. You put 200 units, you fill it up, you pull off the little stickies, and you put it on. What I like about it too is there's no tubing. I don't like tubing, and you can also, wherever you can reach, you can put it on.
And I would say that's the main advantage, so right? That's really why you use it, because you don't like the tubing.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, I have it in a really unusual spot.
Here it is. There it is. You got that, Eric? Okay.
Yeah, and I am using a hybrid closed loop system called Looping, and it's an app called Loop, and I carry around what they call a Riley link.
So this is a DIY, do-it-yourself system. This is not something that's commercially available, but there's a lot of people using Omnipot using this. So this is something you would actually kind of have to create for yourself. I think that context is important.
This looks like earpods, but it's not.
Yeah.
This helps get the CGM data to your phone and it controls my Omnipod. So just like the Tandem IQ gives me a little bit of insulin when I'm going up, it turns off and decreases insulin delivery on the way down. And, all of the different systems have their own, what they call algorithm. They're all proprietary. They told us they'd have to kill us. Literally, it's competitive market.
Multiple times they told us that. Yeah. No, but I think it's important to say why you're doing this. And the reason is because at this point, Insulet that makes Omnipod does not have a hybrid closed loop system like the Tandem pump that I'm wearing. So a lot of people have kind of taken matters into their own hands and doing this thing called looping, so they can get the benefits of one of these algorithms now without waiting for the kind of commercial development. So if that's something you want to check out, I would just Google the words Loop, L-O-O-P, and then Docs, D-O-C-S, and it'll tell you how to set it up.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Insulet is working on a commercial version of this called Omnipod 5, which is supposed to be available, as you said, any day now, right? Hopefully very soon, which will enable people on the Omnipod to get a lot of the same benefits that I just mentioned with my Tandem pump, but again, having a tubeless option, which is important. We want options, right?
Yeah, and my looping connects with the Dexcom. The Omnipod 5 will connect with the Dexcom. I should mention a few other things.
Let me just pause right there because that's important. Because we were just talking about this. The Dexcom is the G6. They should be coming out with the G7 very soon, which is going to be the transmitter and sensor all in one. It's going to be smaller, hopefully more accurate, and kind of features that
may last longer than 10 days.
We don't know, but we actually don't know if that will work with the Tandem pump or with the Omnipod. So this is part of the issue with these different companies that Dexcom is a sensor company, and then you have the pump companies. They're separate companies, and they develop kind of products at their own kind of rate. But they have to always make sure that they are interchangeable. That is something nice now about the Tandem pump, that it has updatable software. So just like an iPhone or Tesla, yeah.
You can update it while it's in your garage.
Just like, fancy schmancy Edelman over here. So, which is huge, because it used to be like, the new pump thing came out, you had to get a whole new pump. And what if you were in the thing where you couldn't get a new pump? What's it called? In the warranty. Now you can just kind of download the new software, which is fantastic. So you feel like you can keep up with technology, and you're not locked into kind of an older thing. So
sorry to say donut hole.
Yeah, whatever.
That's more me.
So sorry, I interrupted you. What are you talking about? Do you even remember?
I was talking about other things. Okay. No apologies needed. Well, there's also, this technology is evolving. So let me just say that there's a system made by Bigfoot. It's called the Unity system. So they have a smart pen. This is their smart pen. It's got Bluetooth, and it communicates with, in the Unity system, it communicates with the Freestyle Libre. And, they say this is a hybrid closed loop smart pen, but basically you get notifications to say, okay, take 3 units now.
So it's not out yet.
Yeah, it is.
The Bigfoot system?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
learned something.
Got to catch up. Yeah, it was approved. I'm not sure if you can get it. So then there's believe it or not, there's a company called Senseonics, and they partnered with Essentia, and they have an implantable continuous glucose monitor. It goes under the skin. The data goes right to your smartphone. So they have a lot of advances coming up too, and they're eventually going to be hooking up with insulin pump companies. So I think the key comes down to choice.
Yeah, when you were saying all this, it blows me away. And diabetes really is the poster child for these kind of wearable technologies. And that's like kind of a buzz thing in medicine in general. And diabetes is really kind of leading the way where it's a data-driven disease. You need to know what your blood sugars are. You take insulin and you make adjustments based on what your glucose is. So having all these options, the Senseonics implantable one for, the people out there that just can't wear these sensors because they have the rashes or whatever it might be. There's always a way to find something that works for you, and don't let anybody tell you that there's one way to do it or that you have to do it this way. Know your options. And a lot of times your provider won't know all the options, and that's not because they're a bad doctor or provider. It's because it's tough to keep up with this. So this is why we're glad that you're tuning in to know about these things and advocate for yourself if there's something that you think that you're interested in.
We should mention something about a little bit more on type 2 diabetes.
Sure.
But first, I want to mention that Medtronic, of course, makes the 670G, the first hybrid closed loop. They really opened the door for this whole development period. Now they're getting ready to release their 680G. So they're another player on the market as well. Now, the thought about CGM and type 2, it's gaining traction. I see people with type 2 at the VA hospital. Jeremy sees them at the university, and it's folks with type 2, it's different. The sense of urgency is not as great as type 1, but you take the low hanging fruit, it's type 2's on what they call an intensive insulin regimen, 3 shots a day, or a pump, whether it's a patch pump or a regular pump. And there's no reason why folks with type 2 why they wouldn't benefit greatly like type 1. And I would say if you have type 2 diabetes out there, and your blood sugars are all over the place, you're frustrated, you're afraid of getting low, that's limiting you from reaching your A1C goal, go out and ask your caregiver about getting a CGM device.
Yeah, and the other thing we haven't mentioned is that we've been talking about using this continuously, what we call personal use. And if you're somebody, especially these type 2, you just want to know, what's going on, you can go in and use it what we call professional use, put one of these sensors on for 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever, wear it for that time period and get a lot of the information just from that segment of time, maybe make adjustments to your regimen and then not have to wear it all the time. So that's another option that you can talk about, and you don't have to prick your finger, etc. It's also a good kind of trial if you're interested in CGM. Let me just see what it's like. So,
I know the Abbott Libre folks have a free trial system. Just go online. You need to find a doctor who will call in a prescription for you.
All right, we got about 10 minutes left. You want to do some rapid fire questions? All right, can you set alarms on the Freestyle Libre? Yes, you can now with the Libre 2. I did that one. I didn't even kick it to you. Did you see how I handled that?
Well, you already mentioned it.
Okay,
that person was sleeping.
Okay, I test my blood sugar the old way once a week, as my numbers can be as much as 60.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, wait, here we go. So this person's on CGM. They're saying, sometimes it can be off. And do you guys ever calibrate? So the answer to that question is basically no. I don't really test my blood sugars unless there's something that I feel like is really off. Maybe in the first day that I put on a sensor it might be a little bit inaccurate. But a lot of times people will just be like pulling their hair out. You got to test my blood sugar and look at my CGM and it's off by this much and it's off by this much. Remember the meters can be inaccurate too. So a lot of people assume that the meter is the right answer and the CGM is off by that many points. But the answer might be somewhere in the middle, or it might be even just that the CGM's right. So I tell people stop testing unless you feel like there's symptoms or something is really out of whack. CGM's looking kind of funky, whatever, but I don't know. What do you say?
Yeah, there's no question that the CGM could be off, but there's a couple things. Because it's frequently measuring your glucose, it's automatically self-calibrating all the time. And I have patients that just drive themselves nuts. They say, oh, it's off by 2 points. 2 points. The FDA requires it to be within 15%. So think about it. If your blood sugar is 150, 15% is 22.5 milligrams per deciliter. Are you impressed?
I loved it. Speechless.
Don't, get your expectations correct. You're not going to get exact. And as Jeremy said, there's a lot of reasons why the meters may be off. The biggest one is your hands aren't clean. Mm-hmm. And also you don't get a trend error with a glucose reading. And there's a thing called the lag time. So I would just say you should get in the habit of not testing. And I'd say the only time I've ever tested is occasionally when I feel low and the CGM is not low, saying I'm low. And Really important point, Jeremy. First 24 hours, all the CGMs, I should say at least Dexcom and Libre are not as accurate as the subsequent days.
Okay. All right. My family member says she can't use Loop because she uses more than 100 units. Can you comment? So I think this person means that they can't use the Omnipod because they probably use 100 units a day. So it is worth noting that the Omnipod holds 200 units and it's meant to last 3 days. So if someone's using 100 units a day, they could still technically use it. They just have to change it more frequently.
Well, I got a solution for you.
Yeah.
Now, this is, of course, you got to speak to your doctor. I'm not your doctor, but I've had a couple of patients like you that use a lot of insulin. They get a prescription for Lilly's Humalog U200, and you fill up your Omnipod with that. So now you have the equivalent of 400 units. You've got to change your settings. So your basal rate is half as much.
Very carefully. You definitely talk to your provider about that.
Dr. Pettus told you that. Tell your lawyer that. But you can get around by doing that.
Okay. So if you have a lot of insulin on board, would you still take more insulin if your CGM shows your glucose level is going up? So this is a great question in general, that what we're learning is that, yeah, it's not just about the number, it's about the trend. And let's say my blood sugar was 160 and I was just cruising flat. I maybe take a unit, maybe of insulin to bring my blood sugar down, maybe not do anything. If I'm 160 and going 2 arrows up, I may take 3, 5, 7 units, because that, momentum is really tough to change. And there's no real formulas to tell people. We actually did a big survey on this. We're not going to go on all the results.
And we published it.
But that people, when they had double arrows up, would double their correction dose. So this isn't something that, again, we can give you specific recommendations on, other than you should be liberated that if your blood sugar is you got to look at the trend arrows. If you don't, look at the trend arrows, why even have a CGM? So adjust based on what your blood sugar trends are.
Yeah, and don't be stuck to these rules that you're given by your educator, your doctor. 1 unit for every 35 milligrams per deciliter, over 150. That's the correction factor. These are just places to start. These formulas have no clue what direction your blood sugar is going. So when I have an arrow going up and 2 arrows, I crank it. I just say, whoom, and I get out my Afrezza or I give myself a rage bolus because I want to blunt that rise.
The Edelman whoom.
That's it. That's it.
Think about that.
Womp the heck out of it.
Is it womp or womb?
Well, womp is kind of an old-fashioned term. You weren't born yet.
I was like, womb. Okay, so insurance and CGM. So basically, is it covered? This is so much better now than it was a couple of years ago, certainly 10 years ago. I remember giving talks at TCOYD about CGM and people were just pissed that they couldn't get it. So now it's covered by Medicare. As long as you're in multiple daily injections, anybody with diabetes on insulin can get this covered on Medicare. And that usually means that all the other private insurances and stuff follow suit. So just try to get it prescribed, basically, is the only advice I can give people. And it will be covered likely to some degree as long as you're on insulin. The question is going to be the out-of-pocket copay cost to you.
That's right.
And that's, kind of a personal decision. But I found that more and more, this is being fully covered or covered to an extent that people can afford.
Yeah, if you have type 1, you will get it covered.
Yeah.
You may have to be more persistent than other people with different insurances, but there's no question. Type 2, if you're on 3 shots a day, you should be able to get it. You are your own best advocate. So just be consistent and pushy in a constructive way.
Got it. How realistic is it that we could have a non-intrusible wearable CGM, like an Apple Watch? What do you think?
Well, I think it's feasible.
Yeah.
The way the reason I'm laughing is that the form factor for the Dexcom, the Libre, this implantable CGM by, it's called Eversense, those, they're so minimally intrusive, invasive, and so I think that, when I think about what we used to do with urine testing and, and finger sticks, we have pretty good systems now. So I wouldn't wait, but I would get something now and be hopeful that future advancements might be something that you would like.
Yeah, we've been hearing about this forever. Contact lenses, patches, whatever. Honestly,
tattoos.
Like when I put on the sensor, does it hurt when I put it on? Maybe for a second, but then I have no problem. It's almost as if it's non-intrusive now for me. So I'm pretty happy. It's always going to get better for sure, but it's not like I'm like, oh man, like, I can't wait for that non-intrusive CGM.
Yeah, because that one may not be as accurate.
Yeah.
May not have all the trend arrows and things like that. So I think, I'm grateful what we got now. It's only going to get better.
So some questions about the Eversense, the implantable CGM. People want to know about, it lasting a year. So just talk a little bit more about it.
It's a very small sensor. And it goes under the skin in literally a 15-minute office procedure from start to finish.
We both had this done, actually.
Yep. And
in Portugal, if you can believe it.
Yeah, at a medical meeting. So then the current Eversense in the United States is approved for 90 days. And you wear a very light transmitter over it that sticks to a double-sided tape, and it goes to your iPhone. And so you get it exchanged out every 90 days. Now, I think the exciting news is that we're waiting to hear from the FDA about the 180-day Eversense. And I think that to me is only twice a year that you'll have to have it replaced. And they're working on new software so you can get all the fancy downloads. So future developments are 1 year. So right now it's 90 days in the States. You can go to Europe and get a 180-day one. And hopefully the 180-day gets approved in the next couple months. And then they'll have advancements from there, and they'll probably hook up with an insulin pump company. And it's like I said, it's not just if you have skin allergies. If you're in the water a lot, or you want to just have nothing on your skin for a while because you can take it off, the transmitter off, and put it on anytime you want. So
that was a nice thing that when I wore it, it's like, you can just take it off. And as soon as you put it back on, it starts working again.
Yeah.
So,
it's a personal choice.
So this is a good question and something I'm hearing more and more. So it says, is Fiasco insulin okay to use in a tandem pump? I just went on this, told it, I couldn't. Is that true? So this is a qualified answer. So Fiasp is a new faster acting insulin. It's a little bit faster than Novolog. Lumjev is another faster acting insulin. That's kind of like the new Humalog. So Fiasp and Lumjev are kind of like the new rapid acting insulins that are a little bit faster than our traditional Humalog and Novolog. So they both are now approved to be used in pumps. Fiasp has been approved for a while. Lumjev just a couple weeks ago, I think, just got approved officially to go into pumps.
Yep.
So you can do it. What I've been hearing more and more anecdotally is that people are having issues with these in pumps. And I don't know if you've been hearing these from patients. That
what kind of issue?
That like after the third day or so, it seems like it's going bad, or maybe like there's more occlusions, these kinds of things. So it's anecdotal, but patients are reporting that. So I think it's something that if you want to try it. It is approved both of these are approved to try in pumps and just see what you think.
It's a little bit faster on, a little bit faster off.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge difference, but a lot of people say, yeah, it works a little faster, and hey, every little bit helps. And maybe we should talk about using Afrezza.
Yeah, that made me think about it. Yeah, so we both use Afrezza in addition to our pump systems. It's an inhalable, very rapid acting insulin, completely rapid acting, much more so, honestly, than Humalog or Novolog or Lumjev or Fiasp, all these words. And there's no studies that have been done to look at using it with pumps or specifically with these systems. That being said, we again have found anecdotally that you can still absolutely use it with these systems, because even though the algorithms are trying to bring you back into range, they do need some help.
Yeah.
And you can still take Afrezza on top of that. You have to be kind of savvy with how to use Afrezza in your pumps and things like that, but it actually can be a really good combination.
Yeah, you should go to the video vault on our TCOYD website.
Yeah.
You gave a great lecture on how to dose it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I watch it all the time.
So, we're out of time. So anything you want to say to?
That was just for the 45 minutes.
Oh, that was a 45 minutes. So we got a few more minutes. So let's just cruise through some more questions. Sorry about that. I didn't want to get rid of you guys. All right. So this one sounds.
Yeah, we're going to answer all the questions.
Ooh, your blood sugar's
I
going
know.
up.
I know. 174 straight across.
174 straight across too.
Are you?
Yeah.
If whoever hits 180 first loses the pizza challenge.
I hope it.
Please.
I'm going to start wiggling to get that insulin flowing to get my blood sugars down. I got to I'm
trying to squeeze something out of my Omnipot.
You can just bolus.
I think I will. It's not going to work that fast.
Squeeze something out of my Omnipot. We're talking about pumps to these people.
I'm giving myself a bolus.
You have to actually physically squeeze insulin. Okay, anyways, I have to look at this question because it's friendly. Hi, type 1 on Novolog. NovoPen Echo cartridges works great. I throw out half the insulin in a pen because the pen clogs. I don't get a dose and don't know it. Help. So I guess the question here is the pen clogs. So I have noticed this. Have you ever had this happen when you put a top on a pen and you haven't used it for a while and it just like
all the time,
no insulin comes out? Why is that?
It aggregates, and that's why you always should carry extra pen tips.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't be able to get any insulin here.
And it hasn't crack. But you should always prime your insulin pen when you use it. Every time you're going to take an injection, I always, when I would use pens, is kill a couple units so you can see something dribbling out.
Yeah.
And then that that there's no air bubbles. Because I can tell you, I've clicked 2-3 units and gone to see the insulin and nothing comes out. It's just air. And for somebody who's insulin sensitive at type 1, the difference between 4 units and 6 units is a big deal if that's air that you're not kind of accounting for.
Carry your pen when you're playing Twister with me next time.
Okay.
Because it gets upside down and the air bubbles get in there.
Good idea. Are you guys on pumps? Which ones? We already kind of talked about that. It says, did you say the Libre 2 sensor can be applied anywhere on the body? They stress the upper arm. So let's talk about that for CGMs in general, where to wear them, where you can wear them, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we don't work for the company. And if we did, we would have to say, you got to put it on where it was tested. But these sensors, if you've seen them, they're tiny. You can put them any place you have subcutaneous tissue. I got patients to put it on their arm, the outside of their arm, the inside of their arm, their stomach, the back. Young babies that have type 1, they put them, parents put them on the upper part of the buttocks, you put it on your thigh.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much put it anywhere you have some subcutaneous tissue.
Yeah. And then the nice thing about a CGM is it's not, secreting insulin. So it doesn't cause the skin irritation issues like a pump does. It doesn't give you scar tissue. Actually, our friend Bruce Buckingham at Stanford, they actually tested whether CGMs are still accurate in scar tissue areas and found that they actually still are.
Yeah.
So I wear mine on the top of my leg. I would show you that, but it would be actually difficult.
I showed mine.
I'd have to stand up on the chair and probably eat it. But I'm the only person that I know that wears it there. And so when people ask me where I wear it, I kind of reluctantly tell them because I don't want them to think it's the best place to wear it. It's just where I found that it's comfortable. And actually what happened is the very first time I wore a CGM, I put it on my stomach and I went for a run and I got sweaty and it fell off. And then I just kind of the next day tried it on my leg. And ever since then, that's just why I've used it.
Yeah. What I used to put it on my upper thigh, but then if I pulled my pants down too quickly, if I'm in a rush, it would catch on it and rip it off. But the other thing, you bring up a really important point. No matter if you get the Libre, the Dexcom, these aftermarket, especially strong skin tape that you can buy that fit right over the device, Omnipot as well, and it makes a huge difference. I think one of the biggest complaints I hear is that people's sensors fall off.
That's important. So there's a lot of companies. There's one called Grips, that's like GRIF Grips. Another one called Not Just a Patch, I think it's what it's called. The one that you gave me.
Yeah.
It was in Hawaii. It's great. And you can, put it on right when you put on the CGM, or you can put on the CGM, wait for it to get a little bit, peely, and then put on the patch. But I wore one of these Not Just a Patches when I was in Hawaii in the water all the time. Made a huge difference.
Yeah.
I go pretty hard on the water slides.
And there's, and they have different colors and for kids and stuff like that for us adults.
Yeah. What's your opinion of the InPen? So first of all, we didn't do a lot of detail about what it is. So basically it's a smart pen and you and your provider can put in there your carb ratios, your sensitivity factors. So when you go to bolus, you can tell on your smartphone, I'm eating 10 grams of carbs, my blood sugars, whatever it is, and it'll give you a recommended insulin dose. So it has some of the features of a pump that it can help suggest insulin doses without being on a pump. It can also track your insulin doses. You can download it. You can download it with the Libre also, so you can see all that information together. My blood sugar is here, and I gave my dose. So it's a smart pen. It's way of having these electronic features. in a pen. So if you are on MDI, it's something to definitely consider. You can get different colors. You can use Humalog, you can Novolog, I think Fiasco also. So if you're an MDI and you want to stay on MDI, this is something to look into.
Yeah, and it's very easy to download what they call the summary page. So it's good for you, it's good for your caregiver. And yeah, I think the best analogy is what you just said. You know, the pumps will give people, you put in your insulin to carb, your correction factor, and it'll give you suggested doses when you input the number. And this will do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty nifty device. And I think it just helps people keep track of their diabetes.
Yeah.
And it sucks in CGM data too. So
a quick one, when you swim laps with either CGM, yeah, you can, like I said, especially if you put one of these patches on, you can jump in the water, do whatever you want. You don't want to take your reader, like your smartphone, probably in the water, but you can keep it on the side of the pool or whatever.
I mean, Jeremy, I didn't know how to swim until I got one of these CGM.
Yeah, it really helps.
I can swim.
It's
no
got like
problem.
a little motor on it.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's do maybe like one or two more. Do you have to take it out of auto mode with Tandem to give a whoop bolus?
Did they really?
They said whop. Whoop. Whoop. I don't know how to pronounce that.
That's good.
It's
I love
in
that.
quotes. So no.
No.
You can do whatever you want.
You can give a whoop bolus any.
Oh. Steve's out of range, and I think am still in range. I'm 183 also.
I'm 185.
We'll have to go back and
we both lost at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty remarkable.
Well, we both didn't make it through our time and range, but it's not too bad being 185 straight across after 3 pieces of pizza.
Yeah, so we ate our pizza like almost 3 or 4 hours ago, and we just went high. So anyways, you saw it here live, folks. We both lost the pizza challenge at the exact same moment, which is that's very fitting. So that's probably a good place to end.
Yeah.
We do our best with all the stuff that we have. These tools are great. They're very helpful. The whole point is find what works for you to get you the best control that you can get with the least amount of work and burden is the bottom line. And there's no wrong way to skin a cat. There's all these different things. There's all different ways of combining them. So kick the tires, figure out what works for you.
Yeah, and once again, I mentioned our video vault, but we have a lot of great lectures on there that covers these type of issues in detail.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of good, fun stuff on there too. Our songs, our games, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even our Twister game.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us.
Okay.
It was very fun seeing you again, Steve.
Yeah.
Thanks as always.
That was awesome. Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good one. Take care.